No, the fact is that I think neo-Darwinism is dead.
The following are conversations with Denis Noble, a pioneer of systems biology who built one of the first computer programs for modeling human organs. In 1960, he discovered how heartbeats emerge by self-generating electrical feedback loops. His groundbreaking work shaped our understanding of heart function and led to treatments for heart conditions that we use today. Throughout his career, Noble had deep misgivings about the prevailing theory of evolution. His current ideas and research are both angering his peers and inspiring the next generation of origins of life researchers to re-examine how we came into existence in a theory that, as we'll build to in this conversation, takes purpose and creativity as fundamental.
Neo-Darwinism that became the selfish gene, aka the modern synthesis or gene-centered theory of evolution, is that all the same thing?
That's it. That's the best definition. You've just given it, yes.
I just thought that was evolution.
I see. Okay. Well, neo-Darwinism is, of course, a theory of evolution, but it's not Darwin's theory, despite the name. That will be a shock to many people. I've studied Darwin very carefully. I've also studied the 19th century people who began to disagree with him. They took Darwin's idea and developed it by making an assumption that they could not prove, which is precisely this. There is a barrier. It's sometimes called the Weissman barrier, and it is absolute. Nothing can go across it.
The Weissman barrier was foundational in the development of evolutionary biology and modern genetics. In the 1800s, biologist and neo-Darwinist August Weissman hypothesized that there's a strict barrier that separates all the cells in our body that die when we do from the immortal germ cells that produce sperm and eggs, transporting genetic information from one generation to the next in a process that goes back to the beginning of life and can theoretically go on forever. Over the years, new evidence has challenged the strictness of the Weissman barrier. But for Noble, new evidence doesn't just challenge the strictness of the barrier. It undermines the idea that there was ever a barrier at all.
Why was that assumption made?
This is what I'm trying to work out at the moment. I'm actually in the process of reading those 19th century texts. One answer would be that it would be a way of excluding the alternative theory of evolution, which was Lamarck, the French biologist who preceded Darwin by 50 years. Lamarck thought that as the giraffe reaches up to be able to eat the leaves at the top of the tree, it grows its neck, as it were, by sending messages to its eggs or sperm to make the next generation even taller. Now, he may have been wrong about the giraffe. We don't have to take the examples that Lamarck sometimes used as fully illustrating his idea. His idea was the same as Darwin's. Of course, Lamarck did not know about natural selection, but Darwin did. He was the originator of the idea together with Wallace. But in addition to natural selection, he realized there had to be something else. So he was looking for an additional process which could go on in addition to natural selection. And that's why he was keen on the idea of Lamarck, which is that some features of the influence of the environment directly on organisms could be inherited via the germline. That was the key to Darwin's nuancing, if you like, of his theory, and which people like Wallace and Weissman decided they wanted to get rid of.
I'm trying to understand why they wanted to distance themselves from Lamarck.
In Darwin's hands, that idea that the body does communicate with its germline, Darwin was convinced that that was the case. And he's been vindicated recently. In the last 20 years, we have found physiological work has shown that control processes, RNAs that control the genes in our body, do pass from the body to the germline. So first thing to say very clearly is the Weissman barrier doesn't exist. So it was an assumption that it was there, and it was necessarily true that it was there, but it was an attempt to simplify the process of evolution to be only natural selection.
So Occam's razor.
Yes, it's Occam's razor, where you don't need a more complicated hypothesis, make it simple. Now, a year and a half ago, I debated the whole question with the main exponent of neo-Darwinism, Richard Dawkins. Both he and I have been talking with each other. We have a sort of friendship between us for over, well, nearly 60 years, because I examined his thesis in 1966. The selfish gene came out 10 years later. Now, we both respect each other, but he was unable even to understand the molecular, biological, and cellular points and explanations that I was giving. He's a very skilled debater, so he goes off in another direction. Very convincing if you don't realize he hasn't answered the question.
And how are you defining purpose?
I think purpose is the use of chance to explore strategies for the future. It is, I've got this array of options in my repertoire because of the stochasticity of my living system. As an organism, I'm using that to try out, in a proper sense, I've got a hypothesis. This could be the future. This could be the way in which I go. Will it work? And the best way to do that is to try it out and see whether it does. So I think purpose can be given a very simple scientific definition. It doesn't have to rely on some kind of spiritualist or religious notion of purpose. I think that's a key, because one of the big reasons why there's such a divide between the evolutionary biologists and the creationists, once you start to admit that organisms have purpose, the religious side will say, but there you are then, where did that purpose come from? I would say it came from me. It came from me as an organism.
So your view doesn't concern itself with a creator or intelligent designer?
No, not at all. No, absolutely not. That's not to say that those who believe that that is the case are necessarily wrong. I've no idea. But what I can say is that I've no difficulty with attributing purpose to an organism like myself, or to the cat, or to the mouse. And I don't see any reason why, because that sometimes is interpreted in a particular religious context, one has to avoid using the concept of purpose as a scientific concept.
It goes to show that bias that we attribute to religious belief can be just as applicable to skepticism if you're not open-minded about evidence.
Exactly so. Yes, because what's happening, I think, well, I would sometimes say that Richard's position is very much like a religious position. It's got the following characteristics. It's dogmatic. It cannot consider that you might be wrong. Second, it's got the fantastic notion of original sin. We are born selfish. My goodness me, what do you understand what he is saying when he says that?